Yeah, a little bit. So is this the Amina neighborhood? Amina?
Yeah.
Okay.
Amina town.
Amina town, okay.
It was a corrupt name from the Portuguese name like El the Miner.
Okay.
Like the mine stones here.
Yeah.
So the people couldn't pronounce it and they made it Elmina.
Oh, okay.
But its local name from the Elmina is called Edina.
Edina? Okay.
Yeah. And the original name of this town is called Anomansa, which is named after the what do you call it? The lagoon over there. It's like a river that it doesn't finish.
Yeah.
Anomansa, yeah.
Okay.
Some of the brick houses, the stone houses.
Oh, made of the stones that they were talking about?
Yeah, the stone houses that the pregnant women were brought into give birth before, yeah.
Okay.
Then they sleep with there.
That side, you know, yes, guys, and I'm
Oh, the baby goats. Oh, this is the Cape Coast Castle, right?
Cape Coast Castle.
All right. We made it to the Cape Coast Castle. Straight down. Straight down. Oh.
You can take a B-roll picture.
It's the Cape Coast Castle.
Can I have a conversation?
Recording right.
Yeah.
So we do a tour or we just walk?
We have a tour, but you have to take pictures and
Oh,
whatever,
okay.
then we come. We are going with that group, so when they are coming, they will join.
Okay. Yeah. Trying to get a picture? Yeah. All right.
Is that place too small? Is it too small?
Oh yeah.
Right, is it too small? Enough. Where we went.
How would you face the challenges of conserving an ancient building without erasing its history?
Good evening. My name is Thomas Abankwa. I'm going to be your guide. So if you have any question, comment, or contribution, let me know. I must say the history here is very dramatic and emotional. But then the most important aspect is the lesson that we learn from this place. We'll first move inside the male dungeons. We'll talk about the graves. There's a condemned cell for us to see, the governor's residence. Then we go and the tour at the door or the gate of no return. And the whole experience here is to take about 45 to an hour. I would wish we all move as a team because the more you delay, it adds up to the time in here. We are standing right inside Cape Coast Castle. The structure we are seeing here happens to be the third and the smallest that was built by the Europeans when they came to our coast. The coast of West Africa, it is estimated about 60 forts and castles were built in here. Just that Ghana alone had more than 40 of them, all because of gold. And that is why this place was once called the Gold Coast. Nigeria, Benin, Niger, a section of Togo, had the name Slave Coast because that was where a lot of the West Africans actually, you can't hear me? I was saying that a section of Nigeria, Benin, Niger had the name Slave Coast because that was where a lot of the West Africans actually were captured from. So areas like Ivory Coast, Grain Coast and others probably had their names based on the resource that the Europeans were getting from their lands. And a lot of these Africans, having moved from Nigeria, Benin, Niger, Mali and others, with the forts and castles down here should tell us they were walking. So I always say, just imagine if today you were asked to walk from where you came from, just imagine the struggle and the journey it will take you before you make it here. And this time around, they had to walk beyond the borders of present-day Ghana. A lot of the Africans died, because on their way coming in here, wild animals attacked some of them. Some got drowned in rivers, others also tiredness, hunger killed them. For you to make it to the coastlines, a lot of them had to walk through different slave markets. And then their last point would be at a place called Asin Mansu. Over there, they had a river. That is where the captives would be given their last part as Africans. They give them food to eat to regain some strength. Their beards, their hair will be shaved so they get to look younger for the trade before shea butter will be applied on their skin. The purpose of the shea butter was to heal their wounds and also make them look attractive because they were bringing them here to be auctioned. Once you arrive in this castle, first they move you up to the Palava Hall where nurses, doctors would get them examined to know their strength as to whether they fit as domestic captives or commercial captives. The domestic ones are those going to work in the castle and the commercial are those to be exported. Then they start to auction or to sell them. The captives in here were exchanged for goods like gunpowder, mirror, alcoholics, fabrics, leatherwork, ceramics, metallic objects like bangles, beads, tobacco, sugar, and other things we might have heard they were using for the exchange. From there, they bring them all to this forecourt for branding or identification. That is where they would set fire, place in metals that had their embossed designs underneath them. When a metal is in red hot, from the fire into an oil as a male, directly to your chest, your shoulder, or your back. But as a female, because they do have breasts, probably at the shoulder, the back, or arm. Some preferred piercing captives with tags, and others were given metals like anklets, so they easily identified them. They separate the males from females. So all the males will move the females into their respective dungeons to await their shame. But then get to know once you are within this castle, you are going to work. Please report.
Yes. Keep your voice on. Watch out, don't come away.
I mentioned a lot of forts and castles being built here, but then out of the numbers, only 3 were castles, of which the first ever European structure to be built on our land happens to be the St. George's Castle. Popularly today, we call it the Elmina Castle. It was built by the Portuguese around 1482. The second one happens to be the Christianborg, or the Osu Castle. It was built by the Danish around 1661. And the last is where we all find ourselves, Cape Coast Castle, also built by the English around 1664. But then out of the three structures, Cape Coast happens to be the only castle that was built purposely for the transatlantic slave trade. And once you do hear about the transatlantic slave trade, it is actually talking about a trade that happened within three continents, which is Europe, Africa, and as well the Americas, that took almost 300 to 400 years to end. And the whole system started around the 1500s when the Europeans actually made a voyage to the west, seeking routes to India to trade, or let me say Asia. Over there, plantations like sugarcane, tobacco, cotton, and others were established in large scale. Earlier, they were using natives from those lands as well as captives from Europe to work on their plantations. But then due to the hardship, they were dying. Aside that, being introduced to diseases like measles, influenza, pox, and others would kill them. They were owners of the land, so they could easily get to escape or mix themselves with freemen. Identifying them was a big difficult. So they had this Catholic missionary, the name Bartholomew de las Casas, who was like, why don't we shift our demand to Africa? Because these Africans proved to be strong. Africans naturally anti-farming, and aside that, we know nothing about the New World. And our system can also withstand both tropical disease as well as the European disease. If they want any group that actually can substitute the natives over there, he thinks the Africans should be the best candidate. The then Pope, that was by name Pope Nicholas V, also had the papal bull or the decree signed, saying once they get to Africa, any African that was not a Christian could be enslaved, and that started the whole trade. In here, they had different ways that they could get the captives. Some of the Africans actually were raided, kidnapped from their communities. Some got convinced that if they were to join them to the New World, they were to be given a better life. But then a lot of them brought in here as well happens to be as a result of tribal wars here in Africa. When the Europeans came in, they got to know that the Africans also practiced slavery. So the easiest way to get our people was to use our system. But then get to know this, the Africans practiced slavery and not slave trade. In the olden days, our system was made such that for me to actually conquer your land, we had to fight. And once I defeat you, I take dominion over the people and as well your land. A slave today, tomorrow could be a free person if you prove yourself right. Some of the servants within the servitude system would work hard to pay off their debt to gain their freedom. Some, due to how hardworking they were, their masters could give their relatives, their sons, daughters to them to marry. Others, even at a point, could change status of being a slave to become a royal. A typical example here in Ghana, we use the Asantes or the Akwamu as reference. They were known for wars, so if I see this man to be very strong, my focus is once I make him the chief, with his strength and strategies, can help me also get to conquer other lands so I can grow. So a village would expand into, let's say, states, state also into, let's say, kingdoms, and kingdoms will give us empire. Knowing this system, it made it easier for the Europeans, because the group we are seeing here happens to be divisions that came together. So for that, we also fuse ourselves into their divisions. He's from England, I'm from Netherlands, and she's from Denmark. Once we are here, we associate ourselves with the tribes and ties you with weapons. Just as you used to fight yourself, the system wouldn't change. But in this time, if this tribe here defeats any of the tribes, they will supply them to me. The same way the tribe here will supply to her, and the tribe here also supply to him. So at the point, we wouldn't go out again hunting you. Rather, weapons given to the tribes, because they want to protect their boundaries, they have to fight others. And once you defeat your enemy, you bring them here for more weapons. And through that, they have them captured. But then the trade wouldn't end here, because after all the system, they moved them to the New World. Plantation owners would also have them exchange with sugarcane, tobacco, cotton, coffee, rice, and others. The raw materials are moved to Europe. In Europe, they get them transformed into finished goods, and all these finished goods are moving back to this place for the cycle to start all over again, and that gave us the triangular trade or the transatlantic slave trade. The African involvement in the system actually brought this plaque that we are seeing here. The chiefs in Ghana, 1992, brought this plaque to say they are sorry for their ancestors' involvement in the trade. And the plaque we are seeing here should always remind we the living never to forget the past, so we don't repeat the same mistake again. It reads, in the everlasting memory of the anguish of our ancestors, may those who died rest in peace, may those who return find their roots, may humanity never again perpetrate. Oh, Mr. Badema, yes, I said, also. All right, so I was saying we the living vow to uphold this, saying the living being, if you wouldn't want yourself enslaved, then please never get yourself involved in any slave activity. For that, they brought this placard. Right over there too, Barack Obama and the wife also came in here. And after they are told this as you agreed, they also have this placard to appreciate. Where the man is actually sitting, actually happens to be a church. So whilst the Africans were right down here, staying, awaiting their ship, above them the English had the church. The name of the church was the Society for the Propagation of the Gospel. Today we call that same church as the Anglican Church or Church of England. And years later, right at where the gentleman is walking from, we had a new church there. We call it the Wesley Methodist. So two churches that are right in this castle. So I'll ask you guys to go through. Please, you join me in the branches. Alright, so the dungeons those days had no lights. So once you are in here, the holes that we have to see up there provide them with light and also serve as their source of ventilation. We have 5 chambers in here. The first, second, third, fourth, straight to the feet one down. Now the estimate, if they are to fill these 5 chambers with captives, it can hold about 700 to 1,000 humans. But you see, each chamber can take over 150 of the captives. Get to know humans were hunted, raided, kidnapped through warfare, so the place wouldn't always be filled with captives. Sometimes the numbers could even be less than 50. But then because of the conditions in here too, even if there were just 20 in a chamber, not all of them will make it out of this point. Once they bring them here, they expect them to defecate in here, urinate in here, and sleep in the same condition. A lot of them got sick. Because keeping just, let's say, the 18 or 15 people here, communicable disease will spread amongst us. Aside that, the unhygienic condition in here will add up to the illness. Cholera, malaria, fever, and other disease. If you are to die in the dungeons, get to know there wouldn't be any befitting burial for you. Bodies will be loaded in sacks. They add cannonballs to give it weight, will dump all these bodies into the seas. So the ocean out there happens to be mass burial for a lot of the Africans that died in here. If we are to look at where we stand, and you could see a passage moving straight down. And these happens to be drainage or trenches they designed, expecting waste to move from the dungeon straight into the sea. But then you would ask yourself, how often would it rain? And even if it does rain, it wouldn't carry enough force to move the waste into the sea. So the domestic captives in here were those assigned to be cleaned the place, and they were not doing that on a regular basis. Before they come in here, some probably might have stepped on the pool, the vomit, and other stuff, making them stuck on the floor. So what they would get from this place, they do so. The rest, they had to cover them with sand to reduce the stench here. That system started creating layers in the dungeon. In the year 1974, the same year this castle was opened to the general public, we had some group of archaeologists from the University of Ghana, which was led by the late Professor Akwanda. When they came in here, they had the first chamber excavated, and that was when they discovered the bricks here to be the original floor of the dungeons. So they took samples of what they got from the bricks to their lab, had them tested, and the results that came out says everything that we get to work on, from the second to the fifth chamber, happens to be the toilet, the vomit, the sweat, the blood, the food particles. So if you don't see any brick, it is to tell you that you are standing on human waste. They left the 4 chambers unexcavated just to serve as a proof, or just in case any group would also want to do their own findings. They could also get samples from any of these chambers to test it. The condition that I'm talking of in here, the captives could stay in minimum being just a day, but the maximum you could stay in almost over 3 months. Because get to know, until the ship was ready to get you from this place, you wouldn't leave this end. If you are lucky to meet a ship today, you journey with them. But unfortunately, if a ship leaves and you get in the next day, you had to wait for the ship to actually return. And those days, get to know, their ships were moving with they were sailing, not actually with propellers. So the delay from one destination to the other would make someone also waiting here for that long period. If you survive the journey, you join them out of this place. But then when you die, like I said, your body is moving straight into the sea. Out of the 5 chambers they had here, only the first one had a gate, all because those that were kept in this chamber were seen to be the aggressive ones, and the aggressive ones were those that were mostly in chains. The remaining chambers, most of them were not chained, but because of the conditions too, it was actually rare for you to even to be moving in here due to the numbers they had packed in here. Question, comment, if you have any, you let me know. If not, let's have a look at the next chamber. Alright, so moving inside to start the tour, I made mention there happens to be a church above us, the name Society for the Propagation of the Gospel, the name today Anglican Church. We paused here all because of this hole. The hole we are seeing up there happens to be right in front of the church. So before you would walk in and walk out of the church, you would witness everything that was happening down here through that spiral. So whilst others, I would say, were preaching, love your neighbor as yourself, beneath them other neighbors also stayed and struggled. Things that were being preached up there within this castle, they were doing directly opposite. Because the Bible as well do say, thou shalt not kill, humans were being condemned, thou shalt not commit adultery, females that had husbands were being raped. So things that was happening here was contrary to what the Bible itself do say. At a point, the church up there became a classroom, but the classroom was not designed for purely Africans, neither purely Europeans. It was only made for the mixed race, the kids they had with the blacks. And some of the kids moving in and out of the church as well got brainwashed, became slave merchants here. Today, the church or the school operates as a library. So when we move up there, you'll probably get to see what I'm talking about as well. Please, you have a look this way. I made mention the first chamber was excavated, leaving the remaining 4. But then if you are to look at this point, I'm sure we can see some of the bricks here, even at this point, telling us that if we get to excavate the whole floor, there should be bricks filling the whole spaces here. But then that is not even my focus. My focus is on the length or the level of the waste in here. That is the brick. And from this level, moving up to this point, happens to be the waste. So you could imagine over 100 years that they stopped using this place as a dungeon. We could still have waste as thick as we are seeing here. So just imagine when the captives were staying down here, how high the waste probably should have been or would have been in here. Please, you join me down. Alright, so this happens to be the last chamber, and this place they would also use to select some of the captives. Due to the condition they had in here, not all of them actually were that fit. Please, you can come in, allow him to, please come in, yes. Due to the condition in here, not all of them were that strong to make it out of this point. So those that were seen extremely weak, when the ships were ready, they had to keep them over there. The rest in chains would walk through the tunnel that connects this place to the door or the gate of no return. So you walk in here and then have to use the tunnel just for control sake. It's unfortunate we can't use the tunnel today, because in the year 1834, Captain George McLean, who used to be the president of the merchants or the administrator, was asked to block the tunnel, symbolizing the English had ended slavery right here, and that brought the closure of the tunnel we are seeing. Blocking the tunnel should tell us this was not part of the dungeon system. Because if they had an entrance here, this probably wouldn't be there to block them. Before the land was given to the Europeans to trade, the natives of this town used to worship a shrine on this land. But when they gave the land to Europeans, they were not allowed to come in here because one, the place became a trading post, and aside that, the Europeans brought a different belief system. So they left with 2 of the stone they were worshipping on this land. The castle we are seeing here was officially given to Ghanaians in 1960 when Ghana became a Republican country. And in 1973, they brought the stones back. So today, those that still believe in the system, they do come in here to worship. That is why we see things they use for prayers. The stools they sit on for consultation or prayers also over there. When we look over there too, we see a lot of wheat and flowers. And these wheat flowers were brought in by visitors like yourself. Remember, I made mention when you die in here, your body moves into the sea. And for us, we believe that their souls are still in the castles. When you bring them, we prefer not to litter the sea, but to keep them in areas like this, to honor, to respect, and to remember the dead. So once we see them anywhere, they do serve the same purpose. Question, comment, if you have any, you let me know. If not, then please, we all return out. No. That was the design of the plan.
Oh.
Alright, so this section of the castle used to be a graveyard for the Europeans. In the year 1996, we had this place established and they left only 4 of them. One at this point and the other 3 over there. Out of the 4 graves they left here, this happens to be the only African that was buried amongst the Europeans. The name Philip Kwaku. Originally he is Kweku Ejiri from the town. His father happens to be one of the middlemen that was supplying the Europeans with captives. So the role of the man got his son a scholarship. Kweku left this place to England when he was 11. In England, they baptized him into the Anglican faith. They gave him an English name as Philip. And his original name, Kweku, also got anglicized to Kwaku. And that made him Philip Kwaku. Age 24, he became the first black man to be ordained as an Anglican priest after completing Oxford University as a theologist. And the following year, he was brought back here. So right up there, the church, he was leading an all-white congregation as a missionary, an interpreter, and a head teacher, educating the mixed race in the castle. He served the castle for 50 good years before he died. Personally, I know nothing that he did for or against the trade, but at the latter part of his years in here, treatment for him in the castle was very poor. So he was not focusing much on his work in here, rather concentrated on commercing in the town so that he could get something to feed himself. And through that, he taught some natives how to read and write the English language. So here in Ghana, we do attribute the Western education to him. First basic school that was built then Gold Coast era has been named after him as Philip Kwaku Boys, which is right here in Cape Coast. Age 75. He died, the English buried him right here. Let's see the other thing. The remaining 3 are all Europeans. The first one here is by name C.B. Whitehead. And Whitehead happens to be an Englishman. As it stands, we still don't know what actually killed him. Because some historical books do say the Dutch killed him. Others are saying it was the Asantes. And some do say malaria killed him. When he was 38, that was when he died, around 1812. The middle is a lady, Letitia Elizabeth London. She came to the castle to visit the husband. Barely 2 months, she was found dead in the husband. When she died, rumors spread she poisoned herself. All because she got to know the husband, having stayed here for almost 7 to 8 years, was having an African mistress. So out of frustration, jealousy, she took poison. Some are saying the African mistress rather came to the castle, caught as a maid, had her poison, and some do say malaria rather killed her. She was 36 when she died. The last one here is George McLean himself. Remember I made mention McLean blocked the tunnel that connected the dungeon from the door of no return. This same man here introduced us to today's judicial system that we practice. So in terms of common law in Ghana, started right up there. Through that, he designed a very popular treaty. Here we call the Bond of 1844. That same bond laid foundation to our colonization. Age 46, malaria confirmed, killed this Scottish man. 46, 36, 38. You have a look at the condensing.